Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the WTF1 podcast. It's 2021 mid-season review time. I had my eyes closed because I was so passionate about that intro, Tommy and Katie. I didn't see if you even waved. I'm assuming you did.
Perfectly in sync.
Oh, yeah, amazing. Always. Amazing. So we're going to go through favourite moments. Of course, Tom Bellingham, the WTF1 founder, and Katie Fairman, the WTF1 editor. Oh, a little rainbow wave there as well for audio listeners that didn't see that. Yeah, we thought we'd just catch up, didn't we? Just have a little chin wag about the season so far, which, pretty much the only news really is just recapping what we've seen. There hasn't really been anything else of interest coming out in the last few weeks, although MotoGP appears to be popping off in terms of the drama, Netflix Drive to Survive sort of realms of amazing news. Well, I say amazing, not amazing at all, but sabotage.
Spicy, but not. So,
yeah. But don't worry, we're not going to be talking about MotoGP for all you guys that are like four wheels and four wheels only. We're going to be talking about mid-season review. Katie, hiya. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
You looked very shocked that I kind of introduced Tommy. I thought, I'll throw something to you, Katie. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm enjoying the summer break, except I can't believe it's only going to be like a few weeks until we're back racing again. But I am also keen to get back racing because the season has been so good that this feels like the longest summer break ever. But it's not.
It's not.
No, it'll be the shortest ever.
Okay, right. So let's dive straight into this then, shall we? The mid-season review. We've got some. We asked for your favourite moments on social media, and lots of people just kind of picked their own favourite moment. It's been a great season, so we have got quite a few moments to go through. We'll discuss it. We'll maybe rate it. Should we rate it out of 10, just as a kind of a how good of a moment it is, just to kind of
we could do an ABCDF1 of the moments.
Yeah, but then not. Let's not do letters because we know how many people are triggered from ABCDF1.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with the first moment from Team WTF1 Discord. Olivia says, my favourite moment is probably the race in Bahrain. It's not the best moment of the season by a long shot, but knowing that we were getting a proper battle between the two best drivers got me more excited for this season than usual. Interesting that we said favourite moments, and then she said it's not the best moment of the season. So I'm not sure
best, but favourite. I think best and favourite are different.
Okay. It depends how you measure it, isn't it, really? But we won't get into that. That will be a podcast in itself. but okay, so of course, Bahrain, opening race of the season. We don't really know what to expect. And then we have Hamilton and Verstappen going absolutely hammer and tongs, didn't we? We, of course, had that big moment where that's where Twitter just started to really rev up, didn't it? That's where all the arguments just started to kind of really turn in motion, was, of course, when Verstappen went round the outside of Hamilton at turn number, is it 3? 1, 2, is it 4? Technically 4, maybe. Either or, the right-hander, the hard-braking right-hander, he extended, of course, and then was told to give the position back, and Hamilton ended up winning on older tyres. And it was a great start to the season, wasn't it? I enjoyed it. Definitely it wasn't the best moment in my opinion as well, but it set us up nicely.
It did. It was a very exciting first race because normally for the first race of the season, we race in Melbourne, and I do like the Melbourne track. I know it's not everybody's favourite, but there's lots of hype, lots of anticipation, but the actual racing itself is never normally, it's never normally the best race of the season. But we came into the first race, we'd done pre-season at the same track. So lots of people were thinking, oh God, teams have got all this data, it's going to be a snooze fest, all this kind of thing. But Mercedes had appeared to struggle in pre-season testing. And I mean, we talked about it a ton on the podcast about, is this going to be the year that Mercedes struggle? And then Max Verstappen went and put his car on pole for the race. And, we were all very excited, especially Tommy. And then the race itself was brilliant. Like, it is not necessarily the race of the season, but in terms of the content that it had, it was surprising because we looked like, guys, we've actually got a battle on our hands, and that's not something we've seen in F1 for quite a long time.
Yeah, exactly. I can't believe that. Obviously, I've been watching F1 for many, many, many years, but there's going to be so many people that are watching Formula One now that maybe have just been watching in the last few seasons and they don't know what a title fight is or how it's been. I will just say that I've got a sore throat.
I was going to say,
noticed. I was thinking, I was like, I'm not going to mention this. And then I was like, no, I definitely need to mention this because people would be like, what is up with your voice?
Don't worry, I was going to mention
lower
that you were headlining a rock concert yesterday. So you were
exactly
the main vocalist.
Yeah, screaming. My screamo band.
Do you want to explain the actual reason for your sore throat?
It's not actually that. I genuinely don't think it is that.
Okay, well, I think
we were shouting on the Team WTF1 chat, and I did like a inward singing kind of inward voice, and it really hurt my throat.
We essentially did a Team WTF1 quiz, didn't we? And we were trying to mix it up because we were all asking a question each for the people that were watching. And for some reason, you decided to inhale and talk at the same time, which was, it was hilarious.
I regret it now.
But then after that, I think you've almost swallowed your Adam's apple or something. I'm not sure. But either or, you're talking, but just in a sort of 2 or 3 notes lower. Anyway,
yes. So just to cover that off. Yeah, a lot of people have joined and they've never seen a title fight or battle because it's just been, you get to the season, Lewis Hamilton wins the championship, Mercedes win the constructors, and you just kind of pick and choose some other battles to enjoy. This was the season where we thought it might actually get one. And then for the first race to be as good of a battle as it was, arguably one of the best season openers ever that I've certainly ever watched. And getting a title like the 2 title challengers, which was clear from the start that this was going to be those 2 going for the title, and it went down to the wire. It's pretty rare that you see Formula One races go down to the very kind of final few laps where you still don't know who's going to win. Yet apparently not in 2021 because it's been absolutely amazing. We've had about 6 of them.
We've been spoilt rotten, haven't
yes.
we? And unfortunately now our expectations are going through the roof, and F1 cannot continue this as much.
I think it says a lot actually about the race in Bahrain. I was going, it probably wasn't the best race of the year, and I think any other season it probably would be.
Yeah, definitely be like a top 3. 100%.
Yeah.
So for fear of actually just debating our scores, maybe we don't. Do we rate it? Do we rate?
I can't think how I grade it because it would change all the time.
You'll take ages. You'll take ages. Okay, so that was Bahrain. Great season opener. Set us up beautifully. Next one comes in from @Mera_Axon1. I have to say that while I haven't seen anyone mention it, Imola has easily been my favourite race of the year. Maybe I'm biased because I'm a Lando fan. I mean, that's quite clear, isn't it? But it was just pure excitement and pure racing all around. Of course, Imola was a wet race, wasn't it? And we had quite a few big Netflix-worthy moments. Of course, Bottas and Russell crashing, which had an amazing bit of aftermath there with how they were reacting. Of course, they were both fine after the accident, but because it was a big one. We had the whole drama around that. Of course, we had Hamilton and Verstappen probably coming together for the first time, where Hamilton bounced over the I guess sausage curbs at the first chicane on lap 1 and had that damage as well. But yeah, Imola was a very good race. I'm still very much set that Imola isn't a good track for modern F1 cars. It's a very much a Monaco because of how narrow it is. But yeah, throw rain into any track and it's usually a banger. We've maybe had 1 or 2 because it doesn't always guarantee a great race, wet weather, because sometimes they just stretch out.
Too wet, you can't do anything.
Yeah, and they have no DRS either, so it almost makes overtaking harder in some places. But most of the time, wet weather does throw in a bit of chaos, and Imola was certainly one of those, wasn't it? And of course, we even forgot that Verstappen was about probably half a degree more in his mistake at the end of the safety car, and he's round and not leading at the end of that safety car period, which I think we all kind of forgot a little bit.
And Hamilton went off, and probably extremely lucky that the red flag came out, because that would have been 18 points that he lost. But then he managed to restart. The whole drama about him getting the lap back, which any rule, right or wrong, that goes in Hamilton's favour, everyone doesn't like it and needs changing and all that. But yeah, he managed to come back through the field and still somehow finish second. But I think those tracks like Imola, they're so not suited for modern Formula One cars. I mean, there's not many. They seem to be getting less and less the quicker these cars get. Thankfully, next year they're changing and getting a bit smaller and hopefully be able to overtake more. But because it was a difficult track, I think that made the chaos more. I mean, how many times do you see Lewis Hamilton make mistakes in the last few years before that incident? Not many. For him to go off in the wet as well. I mean, the Bottas Russell crash, again, like you mentioned, Netflix. If you had to pick two drivers other than, I guess, Verstappen and Hamilton, because it's the guy wanting the seat, and Bottas shouldn't have been that far low down, and Russell shouldn't really have been that high up because he's in a Williams, and how are they even battling on track, and then they've crashed, and Russell's not dealt with it very well. And the drama of, I mean, this is just 2 races already into the season. It's just been enough for a whole Netflix Drive to Survive season. It was so good.
I really am not jealous of the Netflix team of having to condense this season into 8 episodes.
This podcast is not sponsored by Netflix Drive to Survive.
It's not.
Should also mention.
But I'm mega excited to see all the kind of spice that they've got from behind the scenes that maybe us fans haven't been able to see. But that was.
Although
knowing
Netflix, it would just be like a Giovinazzi special for Bahrain, and you don't see any of the actual action.
It'll just be the Alonso spinning with like the guys in the background, that office worthy clip. The
best bit of camera work I've ever seen in Formula One. That really tickles me.
That was amazing. But it was, I mean, I remember when we did the podcast, and that podcast seemed to go on for absolutely ages because there was so many talking points from Imola. I agree in the sense that modern F1 cars aren't particularly suited to I mean, we had the race there in 2020 and it wasn't anything special. It was more the fact that we were racing back at Imola that was sort of the main appealing factor of that. But this year I found that I really liked it because it punished mistakes, and there were a lot of them, whether that's Checo and his really bizarre idea to like overtake cars that he'd gone off wide, hadn't he, and then tried to make up the positions or something. And we saw the early lap collision with Latifi and Mazepin, I think it was. And there were just so many elements to that race that I really enjoyed, and I thought it made for a brilliant Grand Prix. Whether it would have been quite as chaotic had it not rained, once again, that's one of those things that
we can guarantee it was probably not as chaotic with dry conditions.
But it was still a great race. And like you say, having Hamilton make such a rare mistake, and yes, he was lucky, and it's like Tommy said, people often use the phrase lucky when Hamilton has an issue and he manages to fight his way back. And in that case, I would say that's a fair thing to say. But there's plenty of times where Hamilton has not been lucky and actually got to where he is through his pace and his skill and stuff like that. But that was one occasion where, his teammates' misfortune in causing this red flag, or helping cause the red flag, not necessarily putting Bottas at blame, meant that he was still able to finish second, which
many conspiracy theorists dream this year, hasn't it, for incidents that keep happening between certain teams and drivers and stuff. Like if you're a conspiracy theorist, this would be the season to pick.
Certainly. And I still think that it was Russell's fault entirely, that crash.
Same.
Okay. That's
bopping
a little bit. Don't drive on the grass, George. Right. So anyway, that's pretty much Imola spoken about. I still think if we get a dry race, maybe in the future it'll still but then who knows? Because Imola might, if it comes back
never
again,
have it. Yeah.
If it comes back again, might be good for 2022 cars. Who knows? Because they'll be able to follow closer. It's all subjective. Right. Next up, let's talk about @Nina_KTGN's submission, which is Carlando Podium, which is talking about Monaco. So we can move on swiftly from that. Tommy, you want to say anything about Monaco? Or...
No, I hate Monaco.
Sure.
This was a very popular one. I mean, it's not for the racing action, is it? It's the result. It was the first kind of wholesome podium of the year, because I think we'd had a lot of hand-bot theirs until then.
We had, and then Bottas, of course, got stuck in the pits and had the longest pit stop ever because the wheel literally couldn't come off the car, because they basically just shaved off the actual nut bolts, I guess, didn't they? So they couldn't actually get the tyre off, which is... And the funny thing was they actually blamed Bottas slightly for it as well, didn't they? They said the Bottas didn't stop on his mark.
Stop in his box enough or something.
There is no chance if Hamilton does that they're blaming Hamilton. So maybe there was a few tensions in the team already at Monaco. But yeah, of course, that issue meant that it was a Carlos Lando podium. But certainly not my favourite moment of the season or best race of the season because it's Monaco. But, it was quite wholesome to see Carlos and Lando. And, it's quite interesting how some people choose a favourite moment because of just literally that, a result. And some people are choosing it over the racing and the action we see on track. So we'll see a variety of that as we go through the rest of the list. Anything to add on Monaco?
I really loved Serena Williams' post-race interview. I thought that was the best thing of the season so far.
I hope you're being sarcastic.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
The thing is,
sorry, I forget that the sarcasm thing doesn't translate well.
Yeah, and I'm one of the most sarcastic people going, and I was like, "Are you being serious, Katie?" Or I remember actually insulting the entirety of tennis Twitter when I said that I'm really glad that Serena Williams is being interviewed. Why is she being interviewed? I said I'm really glad Serena finished P1 today. Why is she being interviewed, please? Because it was a very odd time to be interviewed. I don't mind her being interviewed. But
no, she's an amazing woman, amazing sports person. But it was weird.
And Serena's like, "Sorry, who are you?" "Oh, you're Max Verstappen." That's great. It was a very strange little time to be interviewed. But nonetheless, Serena is the GOAT of women's tennis. Yes, I know that. I'm aware. Thank you, every tennis Twitter. Please leave me alone. Were you about to say something?
I was going to say Mercedes as well quickly in general had an absolute stinker that weekend, obviously with Bottas and his dodgy pit stop, which I think ended up being like 43 hours long until they actually managed to remove the wheel, which is probably a record somewhere. But also Hamilton really struggled with pace all that weekend.
The strategy as well was poor.
Yeah, it was
from Mercedes.
Yeah, but he had no pace either. I think that's, he said, and it shows how competitive it is between Max and Lewis this season, that just minutes earlier we're like, oh, it's very rare that Hamilton makes a mistake. And this is another example where can't think of many races again in the last 5 years where Hamilton has just been pretty dreadful on pace and just absolutely nowhere near Bottas. Such a weird race to see Hamilton just finishing 7th and it not be a technical problem. Yeah, he had a strategy and he dropped down a couple of places, I think, but he just wasn't anywhere near Bottas that whole weekend. So that was the first race where you were kind of like, all right, this is because Hamilton had just come off the back of Portimao and Spain, won them both, and you think, oh, this struggling Mercedes has won 3 of the first 4 races, and then Hamilton finishes 7th, and you're like, okay, this actually, we could actually have a title fight now.
Let's also not forget Charles Leclerc literally getting pole position and then binning it and not being able to start the race. But I don't want to reflect on that at all.
And the TV director missing the only bit of action through.
Yeah, I was going to say Stroll replay.
The Stroll replay, which is now haunting for everybody.
That is probably the most iconic moment of the year, I think.
Not the favourite, but definitely iconic.
Yeah.
So of course, Charles Leclerc getting or crashing, which then stopped Carlos from getting higher up the field and potentially could have won the race had he been where Charles managed. Maybe it was a Ferrari lockout. Who knows? But it was a costly mistake for Charles, who couldn't start the race. We interrupt this WTF1 podcast for a very quick chat about our sponsor for this episode, Beer 52. As a listener of the WTF1 podcast, you can get a case of craft beer from the USA on us. Sounds good, right? All you have to do is go to www.beer52.com/WTF1 and cover the £5.95 postage, and they'll deliver 8 delicious craft beers to your door. Simple, but you have to be over 18, remember? Beer 52's experts are on a mission to find the very best beer anywhere on the planet. Each month, they visit a different place and carefully curate a case to be sent to their lucky members. Expect top US pale ales, hoppy IPAs, and a cast of superb lagers, stouts, and more. But don't worry, if you don't like dark beer, you can simply choose the light option. Your case will also include the award-winning beer magazine Ferment, as well as 2 tasty snacks to wash down with the beer. There's no minimum commitment. If it's not for you, you can pause or cancel at any time. Just go to www.beer52.com/WTF1 to claim your free case now. That's www.beer52.com/WTF1. But remember, you have to be over 18. Right, let's get back to the podcast. Team WTF1 Discord from M. Zeit. Vettel being happy again, doing things he loves outside of racing and performing well in the car. Why are you laughing?
It's
wholesome,
like just
isn't it?
Vettel being happy again. I just thought
Yeah.
it was quite a nice way of wording it. Just that he's apparently been miserable for like the last few years, and now he's finally found happiness again. It's very sweet.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that he did have a pretty shocking start to the season, and everyone thought, including myself, that this would be a continuation of Vettel's sort of slump in form. But he's certainly had some great races this season and shown that he's still got it and is able to, extract the most out of the car. Not all the time. Sometimes he is still very much, mediocre in comparison to Stroll, but there have been moments of brilliance from Vettel. You can't deny that. Baku, of course, Hungary until he got disqualified, unfortunately, for the lack of fuel sample that they weren't able to provide the FIA. But generally speaking, of course, Vettel with lots of wholesome moments this year, turning up to a proposal, picking up rubbish, which I guess is a bit weird that Sebastian Vettel was the one that had to go and pick up all of the British fans' rubbish, which was not great to see, that people were just taking the mickey a little bit with that. But yeah, just Vettel just getting involved. What was he building a shelter as well?
B museum.
Yeah.
B museum. B
Museum.
B hotel. That was it. A museum.
For bees.
B. Yeah, because Monaco was kind of the turning point in Vettel's season, because it did kind of feel, after Bahrain, when he picked up all those penalty points and he had that terrible year, we were like, well, it's only been one race, and desperately trying not to say, is this Vettel finished? Is it really that bad? Is it just, we're never going to see the old Vettel again? And Monaco was brilliant. Azerbaijan was brilliant. And then Hungary as well. Drove a great race, but unfortunately disqualified, which is now actually stuck. I'm sure everyone's seen it by now, but they're not appealing that again. So he's not getting that P2 back. But it is crazy to think that Vettel could have had 2 P2s this season in that car, which was probably one of the biggest surprises, is how bad Aston Martin have been when that Racing Point was so good.
Exactly, yeah. Like in the first 4 races, Seb had 2 P15 results and then 2 P13 results before he then had his breakthrough race in Monaco. But like you say, it's just been lovely to see Vettel doing Vettel things that we come to expect from him, and has obviously disappeared a little bit during his final few years at Ferrari. But yeah, I think he needed that, as heartbreaking as it is probably for Vettel to have been so like publicly dropped by Ferrari, and that can't have been an easy pill to swallow. Joining Aston Martin, I think, is probably going to be one of the best things he's done in his career, even if just for like a fresh start and that kind of thing. And like you say, we've had moments, like high moments and low moments for Aston Martin this year, but hopefully with Vettel sort of leading the team, he's obviously massively experienced, a 4-time world champion. They'll just continue to improve, and I'm hoping he'll get another podium result this year, so we don't have to just reflect on the fact that he got disqualified in Hungary, because that is, we have the pictures and we were able to see the podium, but then of course to be disqualified after the race means that those valuable points and all that kind of stuff has been snatched away.
I'm thinking actually now on reflection, of course, Tommy did predict that Vettel was going to win Hungary.
So
is this the ultimate jinx, because you literally disqualified him?
Oh my God, Tommy!
I think that is.
I think if he'd have won and he'd been disqualified,
it was a bit of a stretch, P1, but I still feel like you've done it again. Like you've genuinely done it again. I'm not going to lie to you. If he had won and been disqualified, that would be your career over, to be honest, mate. But,
yeah, definitely. I would have been hated forever, wouldn't I? Even more.
Even more than I do now. Yes. So obviously, let's hope that Vettel can continue his run of form into or after the summer break. I'm pretty sure my next prediction for Spa is that he gets out qualified by Stroll.
Your favourite prediction.
That's just my go-to.
Really?
That's just my go-to thing when I can't think of anything else. So there you go. Right. Let's go to Mega versus Primus. Mega versus Primus. The last 2 laps of Baku. No one could have predicted that podium. Of course, we are now going to be speaking about Vettel again a little bit, but generally speaking, of course, we had that massive monster crash of Max Verstappen with that blowout. Of course, Stroll as well earlier on in the race. But the Max one caused the red flag. And then it was just decided, you know what? Let's have a sprint race to the finish. Let's not end the race. Nothing like that. Michael Massey was like, we're going to have an F1 2021 sprint lobby at the end of a long, potentially not that great Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And of course, then a few of the drivers, Vettel included in that, was able to whack on some fresh softs and try and we were thinking, oh my God, is Vettel going to win? Like, genuinely, there was a good chance that could have happened. But yeah, it was, again, just another sort of chapter in this very wacky series of F1 2021 where, why not? Why not have a 2-lap sprint race at the end? Let's just stick that one in there as well. But it was, once we actually cleared up all the debris and there was a long old wait to find out what was going to happen. When it did happen, it was good fun, especially seeing Alonso as well, just sending it on those soft tires. Yeah, it was a good moment.
I was one of those people that after the red flag came out and after Max's crash, I was like, just end it here. Like, I don't want a sprint race. I just want this to be done and dusted. And then when it was announced that we were doing the sprint race, I was thinking, oh my God, this is going to be so gimmicky. Like, nothing's going to happen in these 2 laps. And I wasn't for it. And then it happened, and I was my God, this was absolutely ridiculous.
Literally forgot to mention that Hamilton and his brakes into turn 1.
Yeah.
I forgot that even happened.
I mean, that's not the reason why I loved it, but it helped because it's just added to the championship drama.
I bet Tommy was I bet you gave it a proper fist pump when Lewis went wide.
No,
come on.
I definitely jumped up off my sofa. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, because people like read a lot into it, and I know like someone like I think it was like Billy Monger there was a clip, wasn't there, when that Mark Webber scream that everyone thought was hilarious. But Billy Monger like got up and cheered when Hamilton went off, and it's like, it's not because you don't support Hamilton. It's like we love Formula One, and like it's the big drama, and it's a massive moment. And Hamilton going off, I think 95% of people that when they said they were going to do the restart, they were like, well, Hamilton's going to get Perez and win the race now after all this. And we thought that was going to happen because he got this amazing start, and then him just sending it into the turn 1 runoff because he'd pressed his magic button. What an unbelievable end to the race. And because it wasn't your normal crazy Baku, and then no one would have predicted with 5 laps to go, if you'd have said when Verstappen was leading, Perez was second and Hamilton third, pretty standard looking podium. If you'd have said, oh, the result's going to be Perez, Vettel, Gasly on the podium, I mean, crazy. And that was the start of where we first saw, I guess, a proper crazy random podium, because half the grid have got a podium this year already, which is crazy.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
We don't normally get that. Obviously, we had it last year where a lot of the grid did. But for half the grid to have a podium finish already is...
Seeing as Hambot Ver as well is like now the most common podium ever in Formula One.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Yeah. I think that's been helped by Bottas and Perez having a few shocking moments. I think that's paved the way for. But that was when it was kind of like, I mean, you look at Perez's form around that race, like 4th in Monaco, drove a good race, like came back. Azerbaijan won, France was 3rd, and you're like, right, this is completely justified. Perez, winning. He's won a race already. Yes, it was slightly fortunate that Max retired, but this is where he needs to be. He was already holding off Hamilton, and then he's kind of slumped a little bit recently. But there's a long way to go. I can't believe it's not even half the season, because someone mentioned that obviously this makes sense when you think of it logically that it's less than half the season, but someone mentioned that technically
halfway through
Mazepin
Spa will be.
Mazepin can still win the title theoretically, which is mind-blowing.
God.
We are nowhere near like this season. There's so much left. If you think
I will
that's dramatic,
combust if Mazepin wins the championship this year.
I don't think you're going to combust.
Yeah, I don't. I think you're going to be okay, Katie.
I'm hoping so.
But you make a good point about the 10 podium sitters, actually, because usually we have Hambot Ver, because Bottas is very much, at least in the last few seasons, been not that far off Hamilton. But this season, he's had a shocker. I know that he's had some bad luck as well, but he's not been where we expect him to be. And, there's been mistakes and there's been falling back down the field. And that has opened that P3 slot up, because usually it'd be opening up of the P4 slot when you had Albon and Gasly driving that Red Bull, because the top three were fine. But with Bottas also having a slump in form, it's allowed the podium to open the doors to that. So, it's good for the sport.
Podium finishes in 11 races is crazy.
That is mad.
Especially when F1 isn't that competitive this season, because there's quite big performance gaps between, like you say, the Red Bulls and the Mercedes. But
there's been mistakes, and that's what's been very interesting to watch. Okay, next up, Team WTF1 member Izzy, by the way, says most surprising might be that Paul Ricard was interesting. Now, I know the French fans weren't particularly happy with our comments about Paul Ricard being boring in general, but it's not exactly given us the greatest of races since coming on the Formula One calendar. Whatever that reason is, maybe just because Formula One's uncompetitive and Paul Ricard's not had a great showing. Maybe it didn't have the same treatment as Azerbaijan in a sense, because when you look back at that, the first race we had there was terrible and we thought this is a rubbish track. And then they had a few crazy races, whether that's down to the layout or just purely because it was crazy races. Paul Ricard hasn't really had that until this year, and now we're almost seeing it as a little bit of a different light, and maybe Paul Ricard's not that bad. So I hope that made sense. But
maybe we just need someone other than Mercedes to not win every race and be miles ahead of the whole field.
You found the solution.
Maybe it was that all along. Who knows? But I mean, Paul Ricard was an unbelievable race. Again, you maybe get 1-2 moments in a season where you get the title contenders actually going wheel to wheel on track and it being decided on the final few laps. And it's happened in Bahrain, Spain, France. Yeah, it's just amazing. Like, essentially, Bahrain, Spain, and France were identical races. Obviously, the result, sometimes it was Lewis ahead, sometimes it was Max ahead, but it was always that late strategy and someone coming at the end. Is it going to work? And this is just what we've been dreaming of for so long, actually. A close title fight where someone can try something different and it's still really close, and you're getting these battles to the line. Please, more of it. Three is not enough for me.
No, Tommy's getting greedy now.
I'm getting very greedy.
But no, France was definitely a race where strategy came into play big time. I mean, we've seen a couple of races recently where that's been the case, but it's not often that, like you say, strategy plus drivers actually overtaking for the lead and stuff happens in one race as one package. And it was also the first time that we kind of heard Valtteri have a little wobble on team radio where he was not happy that they didn't do a 2-stop, I think it was. And it was quite a sweary radio message. And of course, I understand that these drivers, they're driving at extreme speeds and you're going to be angry if you don't make a podium and that kind of thing. But it seemed to be that cracks are starting to show in his relationship with Mercedes, because ultimately Perez got past him and got that vital podium spot. So it was interesting.
Very interesting indeed. Moving on, Team WTF1 member Infinite_Fear14. Their favourite moment was the Silverstone sprint race, which
I wonder if the 14 in their name is an Alonso reference.
You make a very valid point, because I think that was one of the only things that was very interesting, was Alonso just sending it and being so quick on I think he started on soft tyres, didn't he? And he just wanted to try and make up as many positions as he could. And that was great. I think the sprint race itself wasn't obviously that great, but I think generally the whole weekend and the way in which, you had free choice of tyres for the Sunday and things that were new elements were really good. I think the Silverstone sprint race was far from bad. I still enjoyed it, and maybe I enjoyed it a little bit more because I was there and we were all there, weren't we? But yeah, I don't know. It's difficult to say whether it was the sprint race, whether it was just the fact the whole format was different. Of course, Friday was qualifying. We had something to play for every single day of the weekend. I think that's what probably set me as I'd like to see a few more of these rather than the sprint race alone.
Yeah, I mean, we've said countless times on this podcast that in the sprint race, the guys at the front aren't really going to be fighting for, doing silly moves, as we saw with Verstappen and Hamilton on the sprint race, because there could have been a chance to overtake and they decided to leave it, and then
they saved it for the main race
the following day. Yeah. We shall not talk about it just yet. But yeah, I like the sprint in the fact that it shook things up. I'm somebody that really likes change just generally, so I was quite interested to see how things worked out with qualifying on a Friday, and how fans around the world were able to tune in, and if people's watching habits, like if they enjoyed having it on a Friday night or whatever. But yeah, in terms of the actual content of racing, apart from like Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen, the grid didn't really jumble up too much. The one thing I did like about it is that the mistakes were costly. And that seems to be a theme that I have going on through this podcast, talking about Imola and now talking about this with Perez.
You love costly mistakes.
I do. I like it when they make a mistake and they pay for it. But someone like Perez, he made a big mess during the race, and as a result dropped right down the order, and that kind of just affected his whole weekend. So I'm interested to see how it will be in Monza, and I don't think they've confirmed the third race, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be like a Kota, unless we go to Brazil, which I don't think is going to happen this year. Nothing official, just a gut feeling that we won't be in Brazil. So
breaking news: Katie's gut says not going to Brazil.
There we go, front page. But
yeah. I mean, it was great to see Formula One actually try something new, and it was super exciting that you're there on the Saturday. A lot of people I know still don't like it, and they've said it's boring, but at the end of the day, it's replacing a practice session. And we were sat down there on Saturday, and you had that excitement of a race start again. And even if it's not the greatest thing, just by the time that the drivers started to calm down and maybe settle, and the race might get a bit stagnant because there's no pit stops and stuff, is when it finished. So I thought it was a really good sort of length of the race. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it again. And I guess another thing that it did was, like Katie sort of alluded to, was it gave Hamilton a little chance to plan his move, which ultimately didn't work. But yeah, planned his move for the next race. And yes, we all kind of knew it was coming at Copse, but I don't think, I mean, the shock of the fact that them two colliding in such a dramatic way, just when the season couldn't get any more dramatic, the two title rivals collided, because it had been, and they are still, they're quite civil, and a lot of people are trying to make it like they hate each other, but actually even in Hungary, they were fist bumping after the race and showing each other respect and stuff.
We don't want respect.
Yeah, but that was, I guess, the race where it did get a little bit bitter between them, and I'm sure it's going to happen again at some point. But if it does, I really don't want it to happen at 190 miles an hour into a very fast corner, because despite obviously like Max got pretty much straight out, but that could have been very nasty.
Indeed, I agree. We want to see controversial things to spice up the action, but not if it puts either of them in danger. So, okay, let's go to Goda2606M, who says Ocon win and that Alonso and Ocon moment. I'm assuming you mean when he was like hugging him and stuff. We've mentioned this before about Fernando Alonso, and I do love the fact that he almost made that Ocon win about him, which is
I love it.
just yeah, it is
You
Fernando
said it.
Alonso things. Completely agree with what you said, Tommy, when we did the Hungarian podcast. Yeah, it's amazing. It's almost as if Fernando won that race in some ways.
He did,
but of course, it was.
He won the hearts.
He won the hearts of many.
He won the heart of Ocon, that's for sure. But yeah, it was again another massively chaotic race. We had Hamilton doing the restart on his own, which is still an image that is absolutely burned into my brain. I can't get rid of it. It's just the weirdest thing I've ever seen, I think. And then George Russell coming out in P2, of course, that had to then be changed. But the fact that he came out in P2, we were like, what is going on? Yeah. Of course, Bottas bowling, which we haven't even mentioned, that was because of the red flag and him just punting Lando into, managing to take out both the Red Bulls was really impressive from Valtteri. But yeah, that whole race, again, obviously it's more recent, so it's more recent in our minds. We don't have to recap it too much, but probably one of my favorite races of the year, just purely because it was on a knife edge for the entirety of that race. You know, Tommy was saying in the group chat, it's Hamilton's, it's done. And I'm going, no, Tommy, his tyres might go off. It depends how quickly he gets past. And it's finished, mate.
It depends if Fernando Alonso becomes an absolute god at defending.
I believed.
You knew it was going to happen.
I did tweet saying I wouldn't pick anyone else than Fernando Alonso to defend from Lewis Hamilton, and he defended.
I totally agree with as well.
Yeah, anyone else, Hamilton wins that race, 1,000,000%, because he would have breezed past Vettel, and he did breeze past Sainz, didn't he? So yeah, that whole race was just really awesome. I think it's probably one of my favorite moments. We'll get to picking our favorite moment, but Hungary certainly is very much up there.
Yeah, just when you thought the season. We've had 11 races. You mentioned about Drive to Survive again, like people making the highlights packages of the year. I mean, so many moments, like you say, the Hamilton on the grid on his own is just that would be like one iconic moment from a season gone by. But actually, there's so much this season that you could have like hundreds of images from this season to remember it by. And yeah, Hungary is just crazy. You thought it was going to be your usual kind of maybe Hambot there to the finish, and just go to the summer break on a nice chill race. And Esteban Ocon ends up winning it in an Alpine. What is this season? It's absolutely insane.
If you had told me that Esteban Ocon would win a race before Lando Norris, especially seeing as how Esteban's his season started off okay and then took a massive
and how Lando's
dip.
Season's gone.
Exactly, and how Lando's season's gone, I would have been like, nah, I don't think that's going to be quite right. But he did it. It happened. It still doesn't seem quite real that it happened. But I will take a new winner any day. Became the 111th new winner in Formula One. But yeah, just crazy race. The aftermath of it was very wholesome in that, well, firstly, Esteban, having never won a race before, he had a podium in Sakir last year, but was just so taken aback by everything that he forgot to come into the pits and park his car in Park Verbe in front of his board.
He thought it was qualifying, I think, didn't he? Where you stop on the grid, maybe.
Yeah, he was just completely missed his turn.
Even though he was told, as well, he was told, wasn't he?
He was just obviously just in his own little world thinking, oh my God, I've just won a race. But yeah, had to park his car and then peg it back all down the pit lane. Everybody sort of came out of their garages to applaud him, which was very sweet. And then, yeah, the embrace between Ocon and Fernando, it was like they were long lost lovers or something. It was ridiculous. So that was very sweet. And yeah, obviously Sebastian getting P2, which as we know now has been taken away. But it was just an awesome, yeah, this is all your fault, Tommy. It was just an awesome race. And like you say, nobody could have predicted that. We had Hamilton and Bottas a 1-2 in quali, Max in third. And I think, I thought Lewis will probably win this because he is brilliant at Hungary. He's got something ridiculous, 8 wins there now or something along those lines. And I thought, Hamilton will go into the summer break having that edge, because of course both drivers probably wanted to win that race so they could have that on their minds that they'd won the last race. And F1 is much as about being mentally fit as it is physically fit. And then Esteban Ocon was like, no, I'm going to win this race, thank you very much, and I'm going to ride that wave all the way until we get to Spa. But I just love this sport,
Yeah, I definitely agree. And just to showcase how mediocre Ocon's season was, the first 10 rounds he scored 14 points, and then he scored 25 in round 11, which is crazy. And I'm about to sneeze, so I might have to put this on mute. No, I'm okay. Good. Right, so that's that one covered off. Finally, Team WTF1 members Megan_F1, A. Hindley, and Freebo all said George Russell getting emotional after scoring his first Williams points. That was a very tearful and amazing moment to see. You don't see a huge amount of emotion from F1 drivers, but seeing that was really, you could see the weight being lifted off George Russell's shoulders. Of course, he's probably put so much pressure on himself after some mistakes, not getting his first points, becoming this guy that always misses out, to finally get it, even if his teammate literally scores more points than him, which is quite possibly the strange. Just we did not expect that at all.
The strangest yet the most George Russell at Williams.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? That now Nicholas Latifi has a better F1 finish than George Russell overall, even if George has driven a Mercedes as well. So it's just
wow,
you can't believe it, can you? But yeah, it was definitely probably the most heartwarming moment of the season.
It was. I think everybody deep down wanted George Russell to get points for Williams, even if you're not necessarily a George Russell fan or a Williams fan. It's just a lovely story. And him getting emotional in the media pen was just, I know we've used the word wholesome, but there have been so many wholesome moments this season. And especially as he came so close. Obviously you touched upon him with Mercedes last year and how that weekend in Sakir just unraveled for him, and that was like heartbreaking to watch. But then like this season for the Styrian Grand Prix, and him having, getting through to Q3, I think was for Styria. Did he get through to Q3 in Styria? Maybe I could have
yes. No.
No.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. No, was it Austria?
Yeah, it must have been Austria because he qualified 11th for Styria.
Just say Red Bull Ring. Just say Red Bull Ring.
The Red Bull Ring. We'll just
right?
Cut that bit out. Yeah. So the Red Bull Ring.
It was Austria, because he got through on the mediums. Because they did it again at Silverstone, didn't he? Yeah.
But yeah, to have the issue with the car when he was running in the points, it just all seemed to be like, this is never going to happen. George Russell is never going to get points for Williams, and that's just the universe's decision. So for it to finally happen, as the phrase goes, everyone liked that.
And to think that the only reason George Russell scored points is because of the man he's trying to take the seat off of, Valtteri Bottas, doing bowling at turn 1. So
a conspiracy theorist dream again.
It just links up all again, doesn't it? It's amazing. Yeah. Okay, now it's time for us to all pick one favourite moment of the season. Now I'm torn between two, which is, to be fair, I think the Hungarian Grand Prix as a whole was amazing. The other one is Charles Leclerc getting pole. Is the pole positions that Leclerc got. Maybe not at Monaco. That didn't have as good of a feeling because of the crash. But I think him getting pole at Baku, and also the first 49 laps of the British Grand Prix. Maybe that one as well, actually. My favourite moment was was up until lap 50 at the British Grand Prix. That was also an amazing moment. So I'm not going to pick one because this season's been ridiculous. So I'm just going to throw those three out there and see what happens. Next up.
Mine is, I think I mentioned it in the last podcast, but it's got to be Alonso versus Hamilton for me. Just because obviously there's so much I love about F1. There's the drama of it and the characters and everything, but ultimately for me it's the wheel-to-wheel racing is why I watch it. And in an era with DRS, I feel like it's quite rare you get a battle that maybe lasts for 3 corners now, never mind 3, 4, 5, 6 laps.
I think it was like 8 or 9 in the end. I think.
I think it was. But yeah, normally a battle, you might see an amazing overtake, but that's it. No one ever gets back because they're gone. They've got better tires. The DRS is gone. So for that battle to last that long, it made it even more special that it was between two of the greatest ever, in my opinion, and many people's opinions, I'm sure. Just not just favorite moment of this year, favorite moment in a long time, maybe in F1. So yeah, loved it.
Yeah, mine kind of encapsulated that in my Hungarian Grand Prix moment.
So if I had to pick a race, Hungary as well.
The moment, if it's a specific moment, I agree.
Hungary with moment, moment Hamilton.
I just remember literally I could feel my whole body just going mad, like just seeing that Alonso Hamilton, kind of standing up, you're like, oh my God, that's literally screaming. It's that's when
I think it made it, because you knew it was potentially like, this was not only was it incredible because of what he was doing, it was also the fact that you knew this was potentially letting Ocon win the race as well.
Yeah.
Again, you mentioned what I was like, and I'm sure a lot of people were the same, that Lewis Hamilton's won this easy. He's got way better tires. He's in a much faster car. He's breezed past everyone. And I think that made it even more special that you kind of were like, oh, I'm sure Lewis fans weren't, but everyone, like all the neutrals were probably like, oh, like Hamilton's got this now. He's going to come through and win. And it's going to be a bit disappointing because Ocon could win this race and it'd be insane. And then for that to happen and it lasts for so long, just amazing.
Yeah, I think my point, well, one of my highlights, like Matt, I have a few, but was the racing that we saw between Hamilton and Verstappen at the start of the British Grand Prix up until that moment. But some of that was just absolutely breathtaking, and it's just an absolute joy to see two of F1's greats going wheel to wheel up until it went, a bit Pete Tong. But we've seen plenty of like really good racing between Hamilton and Verstappen this year, which has been brilliant. But my favorite moment has to be those final 2 laps in Baku, which is ironic because I didn't want it to happen, and it's ended up being my favorite moment of the season. Literally since it was announced that we were going to have this 2-lap sprint race, I could not sit down. I was pacing around. I was right in front of my telly, just like, so submerged in what was going on. And then for the mistake for Hamilton to make, and then Perez to take the win, and Vettel be close, and the battle we had between Gasly and Leclerc, and they kept switching positions, and Alonso fighting his way up, and there was just so much happening in such a small amount of time that I was literally like jumping up and down in my flat, like with such excitement. And for me, that's everything you should have being a Formula One fan, is being so immersed in the championship and the racing. And I just had adrenaline for like days after that little 2 laps.
You're revisiting it now, Katie.
I am. I'm going to a good place.
Around.
Aren't you?
Yeah, like a kid at Christmas.
That's our favourite moments. Now it's time for pressing the button. ABCDEF1.
Got notes.
Right, we'll try and keep this short and sweet. This ABCDEF1. We got you guys to basically vote using WTF1.com for your mid-season ABCDEF1 grades. Let's start with Lewis Hamilton. I'm going to go with an A.
Yeah, A for me. He's made a few mistakes. He's had moments of brilliance, and then also moments that weren't very Lewis Hamilton as well. So he's not A star for me.
Yeah, I think considering the amount of mistakes he's had, it would be a lower grade, which seems mad, but it's the way that he's recovered from those mistakes that is why he is a 7-time world champion, and why I'm going to stick with my A grade. But yeah, it's been an odd year because he has made so many uncharacteristic mistakes and had some struggles that we've not seen from him in a very long time, if ever. So I'm interested to see how the second half of the season goes.
And the fans gave him an A as well. So A's all around. Valtteri Bottas, I think probably A C, because you have to take into account some bad luck as well. But I think C kind of matches up with what his performance has been like. He hasn't won a race this season, has he?
He has not.
And-
And he's, fifth in the title? Fourth in the
Fourth.
title?
he is fourth
Yeah.
in the title and 108 points, which is
Yeah.
87 off Lewis.
It's scraping a C for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a C, but it's a low C, I think.
And a C from the fans as well. So we're all in agreement so far. Max Verstappen, A star. You have to think
Easy.
that, people might go, well, he's not leading the championship. Well, you take into account why he's not leading the championship. He'd probably be 50 points clear of Lewis.
Clear, yeah.
Which is crazy. And an A star from the fans as well. Sergio Perez.
This one's difficult because
I feel like
think he's been better than Bottas, but has he been a lot better than Bottas? But then he's come into a car that no one has been able to drive before him.
I think new team, we have. From my perspective, I'm giving him a B because he has had some good performances, and the expectation of him in a Red Bull compared to Bottas in a Mercedes that he's been for years. I think Perez gets a B.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there as well.
Scraping a B as well.
And the fans gave him a B. Lovely. We're all in agreement so far. This is incredible. Lando Norris, A star. Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Easy
peasy. And the fans gave him an A star. Wow, look at this. We are going crazy. Daniel Ricciardo. It's the easiest C I think I've ever given in my life. Not the grade lower that I've said before, which has caused all kinds of innuendos. But I think C
I was going to say D, but I've actually looked at his results, and results-wise, doesn't look as bad as I kind of feel like it has been.
I don't think he's driven worse than Bottas, and he's in a new team as well.
New team.
I think C's fair.
Yeah, I think C.
And the fans gave him a C as well. Unbelievable scenes. Charles Leclerc. He is 7th in the standings, 3 points behind Carlos Sainz currently. But I think
F.
He's had two pole positions, but crashed out of Monaco. But he has been very impressive. Of course, nearly won at Silverstone. I think it's going to have to be an A.
Yeah, I got an A as well.
Katie's going to say a B.
I'm going to say a B.
Oh,
we're in disagreement.
Yeah. Do you want me to go on to I, or do you want me to?
Yeah, go for it.
If you value your life, you'll keep it short.
I think he's had a good car this year, but if you look at how Carlos Sainz is getting on against Leclerc, who they all praise to be Ferrari's golden boy. Yes, Sainz has made mistakes, but not as many as Leclerc. Sainz is leading in the Drivers' Championship, and although obviously it wasn't intentional, Leclerc's crash at Monaco cost him a potential win. So I'm giving him a B.
Okay, I respect your opinion. Moving on.
That's something. I'll take that.
The fans gave Leclerc an A. So moving on to Carlos Sainz, I think that's an easy A.
Yeah, definitely.
A very good performance from Sainz.
Very good.
It's almost reaching towards A star, but maybe hasn't quite had those standout performances that say Lando's had.
And he had a couple of tough races where, I think an A.
Strong A for Carlos. We don't give out high A's here, but an A was from the fans as well. Sebastian Vettel. He's had some great, some terrible. So let's give him a B.
Yeah.
It's good.
I thought this
been great and bad have been bad though. But yeah. B.
This has been easier than I thought it would be to grade, to be honest.
I know.
I thought it was going to be really difficult, but so far.
Yeah, happy with that. And you saying a B as well, Katie? Yep. So,
yes.
And the fans gave Vettel a B as well. So, wow, we've been in agreement, me and you, Tommy, at least, for all the fans. Katie, just one off. Lance Stroll. C,
yeah.
Fairly average, really.
Nothing exceptional.
He's not done anything exceptional this year, as far as I can remember. Because normally, when it's the crazy races, they're the ones that Lance Stroll just randomly is in P3 at, and you're like, what? Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's very true, actually.
But he's not. He's been quite anonymous this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's not had.
I had to look at his results to remember.
Yeah,
what
I'm
he'd
literally
done,
looking it up
basically.
now. He's had a 10th, an
He
8th,
could
an
have
8th, a 10th, an 8th, and an 8th. So he's not finished any higher than 8th this year, which is.
I think he could have had a good result had he not had the tyre blowout in Baku. I know he was running, I think, sort of P8,
Oh yeah, that's a
P9
good
then,
point. Yeah,
but still, like,
I think he was still relatively behind Vettel. So I don't
they
think it
were
would have
both
been.
going for a weird strategy. Weren't
Yeah,
they
they were going
So-
very long into the race, but yeah, maybe he could have, salvaged a 6th or a 7th, but still nothing of interest. So yeah, C for Stroll and C from the fans as well. Pierre Gasly,
I think he's been
A?
unlucky.
A.
He's
Been a bit
literally
unlucky.
hardly made any mistakes apart from the first race in Bahrain where he lost his front wing. But apart from that, his qualifying has been sublime. Like Tommy says, every time we do WTF1, ABCDEF1, it's so difficult to grade because he's against a rookie
Yeah.
who, isn't consistent at all.
Yeah.
So it's quite difficult.
And he's been
I
like
think
top
it's
6,
great.
hasn't he?
Yeah.
I think, is it like 8 out of 11? He's been top 6 in quali in a car that's like not top 6 worthy.
Well, we don't know that again because we've just said we can't compare it with teammates. But then again, he has beaten Kvyat previously, and you'd say that he's probably an experienced driver that we can compare against. But I think Gasly's still been great. So A.
Yep.
Yeah.
And A from the fans as well. Yuki Tsunoda. I'm sure we'll probably disagree with this one because Tommy's a big old fanboy. I think I almost want to give him. Oh God, no! Let me think about how I'm going to word this.
Yeah,
I would like to
grade
grade him a D. So I think he's been
harsh.
poor. I think he's been poor.
I think he's been poor, but he is a rookie against a very good driver. Like he's been as good against Gasly as much as someone like Ricardo has been good against Lando, and Ricardo's had 10 years in F1.
Yeah, but Ricardo's not binning it into a wall every qualifying.
But he's also
I know
not. Yeah.
I'm just taking into
I know
account
it's being rookie and getting used to the car and stuff like that. But the amount of times that he's, pushed.
Oh,
too
I'm not
hard.
saying it's anything higher than a C.
I know you are. I mean, if you look at his results, I'd say a C. But the amount of times he's been in that car and cost AlphaTauri potential development into the future as well, there's been a rookie, there's been off the pace, but you can't be off the pace and crashing. And I think that's a combination that warrants a D, in my opinion. So I'm going to lock that in. No more explanation from me. You two can decide amongst yourselves.
I'm going to see.
Oh no, he is. I mean, it's fine. Katie,
I've written C/D, but I'm going to go for a D.
Okay, wow. Tommy's now never coming back on the podcast again.
That's it.
The fans gave him a C. There you go. Fernando Alonso. I mean, to be fair, I'm going to give him an A, but I don't think it was an A until probably a few races ago. So he's kind of turned it around, shown he's got the racecraft. I still don't think he's got the pace that he used to. Obviously, he's an older man these days, but he still very much knows how to race. And I think he's been relatively impressive.
I think he's been very impressive since Azerbaijan. If I look at his results from since Azerbaijan, especially when Ocon's dropped off other than that win. Yeah, I think it's an A for me. And I think I'm very excited to see what Alonso can do for the last half of the season and next year. No.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an A. I think we're skeptical at the start, as we all know, but he has turned it around. Well done, Fernando.
He's had 6 points finishes in a row. So that's pretty good, considering the Alpine looked very much off the pace at the start of the year. So yeah, A for Alonso, and he gets an A from the fans. Ocon, now he's a race winner, and yet I'm only going to give him a B.
Yeah,
this is really difficult.
It's a low B for me. I'd almost be inclined for a C, even though he won a race, but that tips it over to a B.
Okay.
Wow.
Careful.
Okay.
If you went into the C category, I think things would start.
Sven Ocon is going to send you hate mail.
There would be some spears outside your house. Okay, so Katie, are you a B as well?
I am I think I'm going to have to be a B, despite the fact, like, if you took out the fact that he'd won in Hungary, because a lot of that was because half of the field was wiped out. But yes, he went through a rough patch from Azerbaijan to Austria. But before that, he was, just as promising as Fernando Alonso was in these last few races. They sort of like done a switcheroo. So yeah, I think they made the changes to the car, and he did pretty well in Silverstone and obviously in Hungary. So maybe he just was going through a tough time. But yeah, I think maybe a B.
Maybe he had this going on. We don't know.
Who knows anything? Not me.
Yeah, so B for Ocon and B from the fans as well. Right, should we collectively put Raikkonen and Giovinazzi in with a C, because we've seen about 3 laps of racing the entirety
and they've just been bang average, both of them.
Yeah, very average. And definitely going to be Raikkonen's last year, I think. Okay, George Russell. Yeah, A.
He's out driving that car and done it consistently. So A.
A. Yeah.
Yeah, happy with that?
Yeah.
And Nicholas Latifi. Now, this man was probably also going to be collectively put into the Raikkonen Giovinazzi group until he just randomly finished P. Well, what would it be in the end? P7. So,
gonna let one result swing you again.
Oh, all right. I felt that. I felt that tone. I felt that tone from you.
Is that a threat?
It's weird because Hungary is one of those races where it was so random.
No, he still gets a C for me.
Yeah,
he still gets a C because he's been poor the entire year.
He's not got into Q2 once when George Russell's got into Q. Has he got into Q2 once before I say that and everyone cancels me?
He had been in Paul Ricard.
I was at Paul Ricard.
I think because that's when Mick Schumacher crashed, and then.
But the fact that Russell got in pretty much every single race apart from one, and then also Q3 twice.
Yeah, I think it's still a C because, as you say, I mean, Latifi was miles ahead at Hungary as well of George Russell and finished about a second ahead of him. So,
yeah, I've gone for a C as well for Latifi.
If he'd won the race, I'm giving him a B, but he didn't. So,
like Ocon.
Yeah, I think C for Latifi. Is that agreed? Okay, Latifi got a B from the fans, so the fans now hate us.
That's a Canadian.
Nikita Mazepin.
What did the fans give? I wonder.
I won't spoil that. Obviously, incredibly unexpected result. He's dialed it in somewhat after his very hectic first half of the season. Well, first half of the season. If you see what I mean, like the first sort of 5-6 races. The car is an absolute dog, like horrific. Like watching it go around at Silverstone, we genuinely thought it was an F2 car.
Yeah, it's so bad, wasn't it?
I think if I'm giving Tsunoda a D, I'm also giving Mazepin a D.
Wow.
What? I think Tsunoda gets a high D. Mazepin gets a low D.
We don't do high Ds.
I'm just explaining because Tom is very sad about this. Tsunoda's in a much better car as well. Can we also throw this in there? It's not a donkey.
No. I'm giving him a high E. just because of how far off Mick Schumacher he was, and he's also crashed a lot, and so is Mick Schumacher, which we're going to next. But E.
I am giving both Haas drivers a D.
The same grade.
The same grade, which I know is going to be controversial. I know it's going to be controversial. I know it's going to be controversial, but yes, Schumacher is quicker in that Haas than Mazepin. That's evident. However, Schumacher has made several mistakes this year that have cost the team a fortune. Mazepin doing his little spin. Yes, it's probably going to damage the floor and that kind of stuff, but it's not writing off your car for qualifying. I know you go, oh, Mick Schumacher's hardly going to qualify and get into Q3 and all this kind of stuff, but you still can't be smashing your car up like he did in Monaco and did in Hungary and had a crash in, was it France? that prevented him from when he got into Q2.
Yeah, it was
that
France.
Paul
Yeah.
Ricard? Yeah. And I just think that, that's my grade. Goodbye.
That's my grade.
Fair enough. I personally was, kind of similar. I feel like I know he's in a dog of a car, but Schumacher and Tsunoda like quite similar in terms of every rookie this year has binned it a lot, which is why I'd give Schumacher the same grade I would Tsunoda. But then the reason I'm giving Mazepin an E, yes, he's picked up his pace in the last 2 races, but that's 2 races out. Like I've got to grade the start of the season as 11 races, not
this.
the last 2.
I love how serious Tommy's just got on this Mazepin grade.
He's like, sat back, 20. He's like, right.
Yeah.
He's like,
listen here, guys. All right.
He's been like a minute behind.
around.
He's been a minute behind his teammate on 4, 5, 6, 7 races this year. Yes, I think by the end of the season, if he carries on the way he's doing now, that will be upgraded to a D or a C.
He gave him a high E, so he's not far off the low D that I'm giving, but we're not doing highs and lows.
Exactly.
When you're
that far off, and you've crashed a lot.
So I'm giving Mazepin a D and Schumacher a C.
Oh, same.
And Schumacher crashed in Imola, I just remembered.
Yeah, Schumacher's crashed a lot as well, and I've just said that Tsunoda crashes, and I'm giving.
Yeah, that's why I was very curious.
But I feel like I'm giving more forgiveness because it's a Haas they're crashing in rather than an Alpha Tauri.
And
the Haas is a lot slower; it's a lot harder to crash.
Oh, have you driven it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a little expert.
Okay, there you go. So I'm sure we've caused all kinds of uproar. That's the most we've ever spoken.
Then?
So
for the Mazepin?
Well, I gave Mazepin a D and Schumacher a C.
E, D. Okay, and then C, and you did a D. What did you do, Tommy?
A C, same as Yuki.
C, C, D. Okay, cool. Right, there you go. So that's the most we've ever spoken about the Haas drivers ever, by the way. So there you go. So the fans gave Mazepin an F. Shock.
Really?
And the fans gave Mick Schumacher a C. So there you go. Right, that's it. I think we've
let's go.
That was wearing.
We're doing a Haas special podcast next week,
just to talk about their grades for the first half of the season. Tommy, final thoughts.
I
always love the delay. I love the 2 seconds of for God's sake, I forgot about this part of the show.
I do generally forget, and normally you go to Katie first, and that gives me a little bit of time.
Yeah, well, throwing it around, you know.
Paid Matt off.
Bring back F1 because I can't wait for the rest of the season. If it's half as good as the start, it's going to be a banger.
Thank you, Tommy.
Hope it's not half as good. I hope it's better.
If it's better, then we are very,
it's
very lucky.
Good, yeah.
Katie?
If this season continues with the momentum and the craziness that we've seen so far, this could be the best season of F1 ever. There, a girl said it.
Wow, boom, mic drop,
Boom.
Goodbye. And my final thought is Lando Norris win second half of the season. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And Alonso's going to win.
Yeah,
and Mick Schumacher's going to win. And Yuki Tsunoda's going to win. And I'm going to upgrade him to a higher D. Maybe even a C. Anyway, there you go. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to this WTF1 podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to discuss the first half of the season with both of you wonderful people, Tommy and Katie. If you want to get involved with the conversation, #WTF1 podcast. If you want to be involved with Team WTF1 as well, please do check out the links in the description. We've got lots of exciting things coming up as well. And of course, you can get a little sort of fast track route into some questions into this podcast as well, which is always nice, as well as live podcasts and so much more. Thank you so much to everybody for this wonderful little podcast. We'll be back next week for something, whatever that will be. Who knows? See you then.
No, it won't be.
Bye.